Respected listener, sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we try to hide behind silence. Sometimes society's darkest corners reveal not shame, but the need for a conversation about what it means to be human, what it means to have boundaries, what it means to understand love, desire, vulnerability, and the fragile psychology that shapes our choices. Today, we open a chapter that many avoid, not to shock, not to sensationalize, but to understand, to reflect, and to grow. You know, I've always believed that the journey to becoming a better human begins with facing the uncomfortable. And when you talk about relationships, intimacy, the hunger for connection, sometimes people drift into places they were never meant to go, not because they are evil, but because they are lost, hurting, unseen, or misunderstood. Behind every action lies a story, a wound, a moment that changed something inside a person. And when we talk about zoophilia, about the idea of forming a romantic or intimate connection with animals, we're not talking about a scandal. We're talking about the human condition. Distorted, confused, yearning for something it never found in the world of people. Imagine a person who never learned what healthy love feels like. Someone whose voice was never heard, whose emotions were dismissed, whose boundaries were broken long before they even knew the meaning of the word. Loneliness can shape a heart in strange ways. Isolation can rewire a mind, and longing can make a person seek comfort in places where no real comfort exists. But animals, they cannot consent. They cannot communicate their pain. They cannot understand intentions. They cannot stand on equal ground with a human being. And that truth alone turns this entire conversation into a lesson about responsibility, not desire, protection, not judgment. I once heard someone say that the darkest roads in life are not chosen. They are stumbled into. Maybe it starts with trauma, maybe with emotional abandonment, maybe with curiosity that grows into confusion. But no path that crosses moral boundaries ever ends in peace. And as you listen to these words, I want you to understand something deeply. Every harmful act begins as an unhealed wound. Every destructive decision begins as an unanswered question inside someone's heart. We need to talk about this, not to condemn individuals, but to protect both humans and animals, to protect innocence, to protect dignity, to understand how a mind reaches such a point, how society fails to provide emotional education, how silence leads people astray. This is not a story of blame, it is a story of transformation. It is the story of how someone walks out of a place of confusion into a place of clarity, how someone replaces secrecy with healing, how someone rebuilds their worth, their confidence, their understanding of love. And as we begin this journey, remember this: growth starts where shame ends. Healing begins where conversations open, and humanity becomes stronger every time we confront the uncomfortable with empathy, not hate. Respected listener, as we walk deeper into this conversation, I want you to imagine something simple yet powerful: a mirror. Not the kind that shows your face, but the kind that reflects your truth. Every human carries two versions of themselves, the person they show the world and the person they hide behind closed doors. The second one is where our fears live, our confusion lives, our past wounds echo louder than our present strength. And it is usually that hidden self that leads people into choices they never talk about. When someone develops feelings or attachment toward animals, it often starts in that silent, hidden place. Not from power, but from powerlessness. Not from confidence, but from deep emotional disconnection. Humans who struggle with forming relationships, who fear rejection, who never experience safe affection, who are shamed for their emotions or misunderstood in their identity, they start looking for the simplest form of comfort, the path with the least risk of judgment. Animals offer affection without criticism, presence without questions, loyalty without conditions. And for someone emotionally fractured, that feels like a small moment of peace in a chaotic world. But here's the truth we must understand with compassion, not denial. Affection is not the same as consent. Comfort is not the same as connection. And loneliness is not a foundation for any relationship, especially not one that crosses ethical boundaries. I once met someone who shared their story with trembling hands. They weren't evil, they weren't monstrous, they were broken. They told me about growing up in an environment where no one ever hugged them, no one ever listened, no one ever taught them what healthy intimacy feels like. In their isolation, they began confusing gentleness with love, presence with partnership, safety with submission. Their mind blurred the lines because no one had ever drawn them clearly. And it reminded me of something powerful. The absence of guidance can be as harmful as the presence of trauma. This is why conversations like this matter. Not to shame people, but to pull them out of silence. to teach them that real love exists between equals. That connection grows from shared understanding, not vulnerability that only flows one way. That healing is possible, deeply, slowly, beautifully, when we acknowledge our pain instead of acting from it. Animals rely on us. They trust us. They look at humans as protectors, not partners. And when someone breaks that trust, it isn't just the animal that gets hurt. It is the human soul that fractures even more deeply. Because somewhere inside, they know they crossed a line that leads to more emptiness, not fulfillment. But here's the part I want you to hold close. No matter how complicated someone's past is, no matter how lost they feel, transformation is always possible. Humans can learn, they can unlearn, they can rebuild, they can rise from their lowest points and discover emotional strength they never knew they had. Sometimes the most courageous step is simply admitting, I need help, I need healing, I need to understand myself. And the day someone says that, truly says it, is the day their life begins again. Respected listener, there comes a moment in every journey where the truth stops whispering and starts demanding attention. A moment where a person realizes that the life they've been living, the choices they've been making, the silence they've been hiding behind, none of it leads to the peace they are yearning for. And for many who walk into the shadows of unhealthy or harmful intimacy, that moment often arrives unexpectedly. Sometimes through guilt, sometimes through fear, sometimes simply through a sudden awareness that they are drifting far from the person they want to become. What people often forget is that unhealthy attachments don't grow from pleasure. They grow from emotional survival. They grow from unmet needs, from childhood wounds, from years of loneliness that slowly reshape someone's sense of self-worth. But every unhealthy attachment carries consequences that quietly echo through a person's life. The shame of secrecy, the fear of judgment, the confusion of knowing something isn't right but not knowing how to stop. These emotions linger like ghosts, turning every moment of silence into a battle between who they are and who they want to be. During one conversation, someone once told me with tears running down their face, I didn't go looking for this. It just became the only place I felt seen, and that sentence stayed with me because it showed something vital. Even the most misunderstood behaviors often come from a deep hunger to be valued. When humans cannot find connection with humans, they start chasing shadows, illusions of safety that ultimately leave them more alone than before. But here is where true transformation begins. Understanding that healing doesn't come from punishing yourself. It comes from learning yourself. It comes from asking hard questions. Why do I feel disconnected from people? Why do relationships scare me? Why does vulnerability feel dangerous? These questions are not meant to break us. They are meant to rebuild us. They open the door to therapy, to emotional education, to learning real intimacy, the kind that grows from communication, trust, and boundaries. As we explore this topic with honesty, one truth becomes clear. Animals cannot speak, but their silence does not equal consent. They cannot choose, cannot understand, cannot stand as equals. So the weight of responsibility always falls on the human. And when someone chooses healing, chooses growth, chooses to step away from harmful paths, they rediscover something beautiful, their humanity. Healing is not instant. It is not glamorous. It is not a straight line. It is a slow construction of self-respect, one decision at a time. A person learns to seek relationships where both hearts speak the same language. They learn to embrace vulnerability with humans, not hide from it. They learn that love is not found in the absence of judgment, but in the presence of understanding. And most importantly, they learn that they are worthy of healthy love, worthy of real connection, worthy of a future that feels honest and strong. We are not defined by the darkest chapters of our story. We are defined by the courage to rewrite them. And anyone who steps away from confusion and toward clarity is already winning their battle. Respected listener, as we stand at the end of this journey, I want you to take a deep breath and think about everything we explored together. Not as a story about a taboo subject, not as a lecture about right and wrong, but as a mirror reflecting the fragile, complicated, beautifully imperfect nature of being human. Every person walking this earth carries a history, a wound, a silence that shaped them. Some wounds grow quietly, some create confusion, some cause people to lose their way. But no path is permanent, and no darkness is stronger than the human ability to change. What matters most is understanding that healing is not a destination. It's a decision, a choice to rise, a choice to face the pain that was ignored for years, a choice to learn healthier forms of love, healthier relationships, healthier emotional language, a choice to protect the innocent, including the animals who rely on our humanity, our empathy, our strength. Growth begins where denial ends. Power begins where truth is spoken, and transformation begins the moment someone says, I deserve a better version of myself. Because you do. Every person does, no matter where they have been, no matter what they've struggled with, no matter how lost they felt, they deserve redemption, clarity, connection, and hope. The real story here is not about darkness. It's about the light that follows when someone learns to love responsibly, to feel deeply, to understand boundaries, to rebuild confidence, and to seek genuine human connection. It's about turning a misunderstood past into a powerful future. It's about stepping away from harmful paths and stepping into a life filled with purpose, dignity, and emotional maturity. If you're listening to this right now, remember something important. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. What defines you is the decision you make today, the courage you show now, the compassion you choose for yourself and others, the way you rise after realizing you deserve more than what your shadows once convinced you to accept. So walk forward with honesty, walk forward with dignity, walk forward with the strength to heal, to grow, to become the version of yourself that you once thought was impossible. This journey is not about shame, it is about rebirth. And the world needs the strongest, most healed, most human version of you. Always remember, even the heaviest stories can transform into the most powerful lessons. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can ever do is begin again. Respected listener, before we close this journey, I want to leave you with a truth that is bigger than any topic, any mistake, any past, any silence. Every human being is capable of transformation. Every soul can rise from confusion into clarity, from fear into courage, from loneliness into connection. What defines a person is never the darkness they walked through. It is the light they choose to walk toward afterward. In this world, we all carry invisible stories. Some are heavy, some are painful, some are misunderstood. And when people fall into harmful patterns, it is rarely because they wanted to hurt the world. Most of the time, they were trying to escape their own hurt. But escape is not healing. Silence is not healing. Running is not healing. Healing begins when we finally stop, breathe, and look honestly at ourselves. The journey we explored together was not about judgment. It was about awakening. Awakening to the responsibility we carry as humans. Awakening to the boundaries that protect both us and the innocent beings that trust us. Awakening to the reality that real love, real connection, real belonging, they all begin between equals. And that is something no shortcut can ever replace. If there is one message you take from this entire script, let it be this: you are stronger than the shadows you've survived. You are more capable than the mistakes you've made. You are more deserving than the loneliness you once accepted. And you have every right to build a life that reflects the healthiest, kindest, most courageous version of yourself. Healing is not instant. Growth is not perfect, but every step toward honesty is a victory. Every moment of self-awareness is a breakthrough. Every time you choose empathy over secrecy, courage over fear, responsibility over impulse, you reclaim a piece of your humanity. And in that reclamation, you discover something powerful. You were never meant to live in silence. You were meant to rise. So carry this message with you, with a steady heart, with a clear mind, and with a spirit ready to grow. Your story is not over. Your future is unwritten, and the next chapter can be the strongest one yet. Stand tall, heal deeply, and become the person you were always meant to be.